In round 3, I was paired against another international chess player, this time from Malaysia. My opponent was rated 1471, that's 400 points under my rating exactly, to the dot. But the day before, she had beaten a 1700, 300 points above her rating. Welcome to my analysis of Game 3 of the Münsterland Open in Germany. In this game, I was playing one of the only other international chess people there. Her name was Claire Fu from Malaysia, and I have the black pieces. The only thing I know about her is that she plays d4. So I played for the first time a new opening against d4 in classical chess. My opponent has the white pieces and starts off with d4, to which I go with knight f6. So right off the bat, on all my registered FIDE tournaments, I have d5, and even local tournaments, I have d5 registered, okay? This is the first time I played knight f6 in my life. So I prepared a little bit of the Benoni ahead of time. On e4, I would have played c5, like something just to prevent her from preparing against me. That was the strategy here. So I go knight f6 on a whim. The idea is that on c4, I go e6, threatening to do a nimzo. So the nimzo Indian defense. On knight c3, I would go bishop b4 to pin her knight. However, white can play knight f3, which is the anti-nimzo Indian defense, right? By delaying that knight c3 move, I don't have bishop b4 immediately anymore. And so now, because knight f3 is played, I go c5, switching up the move orders and really telling her that I'm actually going for a Benoni, because c5 marks the beginning of a potential Benoni if white goes for d5. And she did. The only thing is, after d5 takes, and then d6, the knight is on f3 here, leading to some Benonis that are less desirable for white, as white usually likes to play e4 and then f4 with the knight on c3, and then have a ton of space to them. But now, with knight c3, I go fianchetto bishop. The pawn is on e4, but there's no supportive f4 for potential e5s later on in the game. I kind of reduce the power of the Benoni here by creating, or forcing, shall I say, a knight f3 variation, which is kind of cool. And I invented this. Like, I don't know anybody else who has done this as black. If you do know somebody who has done this as black, let me know and I'll credit them. But this is 100% me. Bishop g7, I know that bishop b5 check is a thing. In this variation though, I can go bishop d7, and if you go for the annoying bishop f4, I can just take, knight takes, and then knight takes e4 defends d6 is perfect. It's like perfectly timed. It's amazing. And if I go, let's say bishop d7, you take, I take, bishop f4 pressuring d6, and then I can go knight g4, sacking this pawn, and then queen b6 is the resource to get back into this game. Of course, I didn't know this by heart. I really played the Benoni off a whim. Like, yeah, on a whim, sorry. It's on a whim. So this wasn't played. Bishop d3 was played, which is more regular, and this is what I had prepared really coincidentally. The idea here is I go a6 to try to play b5. By the way, a6, I know that this is the top engine move because I had prepared on a whim, again, I'll say on a whim 5 more times. On a whim, I had prepared a6, and if a4 is played by white, this is engine moves. Now I have bishop g4, and the idea is just I give out the bishop, which is a terrible bishop in this line. Okay, so bishop g4 is played here, and bishop f4 ensues. By the white pieces, the idea is that you're attacking d6, and if I go knight d7, you just take the pawn on d6. So the development of this knight is really restricted here, not on a6, not on c6, and not on d7. Tough times. So I go castles, and after castles, usually white will play h3, but I guess she decided to delay it as much as possible. I don't know why. And now I come in with knight h5 and attacks this bishop here and aims to just rip this bishop off of this diagonal so I can develop my other knight. So my knight helping my other knight, it's a big, great family, right? And if bishop g5, don't fret, loses to bishop takes f3. And after bishop takes d8, I take on d1, and in this position I have a piece up as the black pieces, and if you play, like, let's say bishop e7, I go rook e8, and if you take, I just save my bishop and I'm up a piece against like 2 pawns here, and this should be good enough to win for black. So bishop g5 on tempo does not work, so she goes back to e3, and now I go with knight d7. Not only do I develop the knight to d7, I get my knight developed finally, my last minor piece to develop, but after h3, I can take, and now get this square on e5. on tempo on the queen, forking the queen and bishop. Now the engine thinks that after queen e2, defending the bishop, I should be more patient and play instead queen h4 or queen f6 to take up this f4 square. Brethren. I instead go for knight takes d3, which I think was the idea of the knight e5. Where engine moves up until here, you guys. I had prepared up until here 15, 20 minutes before the round, knight e5. Super proud of myself. Queen e2, we trade. I just want to take off the bishop pair. Now I go for f5. What I had seen is that on takes and rook takes, you cannot play g4. And my opponent told me after the game when we analyzed that she really wanted to play g4, but realized she soon couldn't, because now I have knight f4. And although my pieces were forked, now I go knight f4, attacking your queen first, forcing a queen move that still attacks my knight and rook. So let's say queen e4. On queen e4, you're still attacking my rook with the pawn, and with the bishop here. And now I have to save these two pieces. Conveniently, I have a trick. Knight takes h3 check, forcing the king to h2 or g2, it doesn't matter. But the idea is that white still wants to retain pressure on two pieces at once. But now I have rook e5. And once again, I'm attacking your queen. The queen must move. Queen can go anywhere. And then I just save my piece with knight g5. And if you go f4 here, I take your bishop. What if queen here? And then after knight here, you would have f4 and your bishop is saved. Well, if queen d3, now I would have queen h4. And this knight and queen are formulating a pretty convincing attack. This did not happen. Instead, rook b1 was played. And she told me she had no idea what to do here. In this position, she was completely confused. Not confused really, but just like she didn't know what to do. So instead, she does a prophylactic move, getting her rook out of this diagonal, out of the x-ray of my lethal bishop. This bishop is notorious for being a destructive piece against the white pieces in both King's Indian defense, the Benoni, and many, many more openings. The Grunfeld as well. So this bishop will become a penultimate piece in this game. I warn you, this bishop is gonna create nightmares for some people watching the video right now. You know, if you have sensitive eyes. Okay, so rook b1 is played, and now I go with the advance, knight f4, gaining that tempo, gaining that aggressive push for towards the king, getting a nice piece here. And on bishop takes, now I have traded off the dark squared bishop, which means that this is the king of the hill. No bishop will be able to trade against mine, and my bishop can now live its life to the fullest. Rook takes f4, and now we're seeing a pattern. My rook, my bishop, they're all combining for a lot of these dark squares here, which is really nice. And later on, we'll see how these dark squares ultimately become fruitful for the black pieces. So now I had seen knight e4, which I liked. And knight e4, I don't know what I would have played. But anyways, queen e3 is played here. And I go bishop e5. I don't like going back, and I don't like queen f6 things, so I just decided, you know what, let's close the file entirely so that the white pieces who are first at taking the e-file just can't grasp it. Because on g3 attacking my rook, you can't play f4 and now win the file because I have bishop d4 winning the queen. And so bishop e5 now becomes a really valid move because this variation doesn't work. However, she plays this halfway with the g3 move. I don't like this for white at all. I think it creates way too many weaknesses. You can agree or disagree with me. Let me know in the comments. On g3, rook f7. Okay, rook f7 is not the best. The engine prefers rook b4. I looked at rook b4. I didn't like it because it gives black some counterplay after king g2, f4, and just white comes in and plays really strong and aggressive against my king. And my king has like no defenders. So I keep a defender around my king, right? Rook f7. White just looks weak on the king side. The pawn on h3 is undefended. The f3 square is not looking too good. And the f2 square is something I'm looking to target. All in one grasp. And she doesn't make it easy on herself when she plays b4 to complement this. b4 is a move that I see immediately and just my instinct goes off. Like I'm like, there's a tactic here, black is winning for sure because this is a liability, this is now less defended, this is a liability, this f3 square can be taken, this f2 square can be taken. Of all these weaknesses, you guys, I play on 1, 2, and 3 and another fourth one. And here, after looking at queen c8, which doesn't work. Queen c8's a nice idea. You're attacking h3, and you're threatening c takes b4 with an attack on the knight on c3. I just like knight e4 here. The knight e4 is really useful here because if I take, there's no double attack on this knight, and just like rook fc1. It's dominating for white, and I don't love this. So the other move I thought of is queen f8, threatening rook f3 and going on that f3 square. I didn't like this either. Again, after knight e4, rook here, the queen goes back, and pressure adds up on c5 if I take, rook takes, and white gets a lot of moves, a lot of, you know, juice. I didn't like this either. Finally, I find this really nice resource. Really, I calculated 6 to 7 moves in advance. It's raining on my laptop. The wind's picking up, crossing fingers. Anyways, the idea I find, after all the suspense of this wind and a little bit of rain, is this really nice bishop d4, acting on the fact that this knight is less defended and forcing white to play a queen move that still defends this knight. Believe it or not, this forces one of 3 moves. One of 4 moves. If you want to play this terrible move, be my guest. But it forces relatively queen d3, queen d2 defending the knight, and queen c1. Queen c1 I didn't like for the plan that I play in the game, that's just more winning. Queen d3 I didn't like because f2 becomes weak, and queen d3 also gives queen g5. And now I'm threatening f2, threatening g3 things. I'm pressuring things here. I'm not threatening g3 now, I just want to make that clear. But in the future, this will become really nice with rook f8 and then rook f3. And then I'll be able to take on g3. But the queen goes to d2. The queen going to d2 is my favorite one for the white pieces because it takes up g5. No queen g5, and honestly, it's hard for my queen to penetrate. But I find this really nice resource now. Queen f6. I had seen this, of course, before bishop d4. You need to see this. And this is best move. It's beautiful. I'm attacking this knight, so a tempo gaining move, forcing a knight move. Knight e4 is the only good looking move here. And then I go queen f3, piercing in to that f3 square, attacking this knight and also going upon this weakness because the f2 pawn is useless. It can't defend g3. And so the more pressure I put on this knight, the more chances I have of unlocking that g3 free pawn. And so rook e1 I had calculated, and here better is rook e7. I hope the wind is not killing me here. Better is rook e7, but I calculated this magical move. By the way, you can't play knight g5 forking my pieces because I have queen takes g3, king h1, and then rook takes f2. And where are the pieces forked anymore? They're not there. I just trade everything and I'm up 2 pawns. So rook e1 is played, and now I play a bloody blue blunder. I invented this. So there's such a thing as a red brilliant, in which you do a brilliant seeming move with brilliant ideas, but it's a complete blunder because of one line that completely loses the game. I did a blue blunder here. A blue blunder, say that 10 times fast. A blue blunder is when you play a move. I invented this, by the way. This is fresh off the docks. A blue blunder is when you play a blundering seeming move in one way or more. In this case, it's 3 ways. And all the moves against it don't work. And so it adds up to a brilliant type of idea. And that is rook e8. Here, I am giving 3 looking knight moves. Winning knight moves. They look winning, right? Knight takes d6, forking my 2 rooks. That's number 1. Knight f6 check. Discovery on this rook by this rook, winning the exchange. That's number 2. And I'm also giving knight g5, forking my rook and my queen. That's number 3. None of these work. So hype. Okay, let's go over them. If knight takes g5, parallel to what I just spoke about this knight g5, we have queen takes g3 check, king here. This time there's a rook battle here. So I have to take this first, sacking my queen, and if f takes, I have rook e takes f1. Very important, it's the e rook. King up, and then rook f2 wins the queen and the game. Queen takes, and I'm up a rook. It's beautiful, right? And it's way different than a move ago because the rooks here are not adjacent. So it's a completely different variation, this knight g5. Number 2. Not in order, by the way. Knight takes d6. just loses on the spot. I think we can all see why. It's relatively all the same idea. Queen takes g3 check, and I'm forking the king and rook, although my rook is also like attacked with check, right? So I have to be careful. So king h1, queen takes, king here, and then I can go like check, or I can go here. The basis of it is I am up 2 pawns, and you can't take my rook here now because I have check, king up, and then checkmate on h5. And if you take my rook first, I take with the bishop and threaten mate and your knight. And so you can't take my rook, it's checkmate. The third move, which was played in the game, is knight f6 check, discovered attack on my rook. And I came up with this ingenious method to win this game because of a tempo gaining king move. The idea here, there's 3 possibilities to take the knight with. 2 of these, the queen and bishop, take out aggressive attacking pieces from the attack. You don't want to do this. So I take with the rook, unveiling this f7 square. And after rook takes e8 check, now I can go king f7 attacking the rook. This is crucial because on any rook move here, rook b8, I have queen check now, king h1, check, king here, check, oh, not that one, this one, king up, and then rook f5. GG's, you can't stop rook h7. Even after some checks here, it's tough, it's over. So, after king f7, my opponent plays queen e2, saving the rook and trying to trade queens, and now comes in my compensation. Queen takes g3, king h1, queen takes h3, king g1, queen g3, king h1, queen h4, king g1, and here I miss a win, and it hurt me. It hurt me that I miss a win here. It is what it is. The win is rook takes f2 is super hard to spot because, look, in this position, white is threatening checkmate in 1. So you can't do whatever. Either you're finding a forced mate with checks, or you're finding another way to win, but rook takes f2 unveils this e6 check. Queen e6 check looks very scary, but I only calculated this and then assumed that white was winning. But the thing is, after queen e7 check, forcing a queen trade perhaps, there's call an ambulance, but not for me. Rook f7, check on your king, winning the queen. But after queen check, king here, I was thinking for so long because my original idea was to go bishop e5, and that was what I had spotted 6 moves ago. Bishop e5 here wins because I break the connection between the queen and rook, thus threatening this rook, and I'm threatening checkmate in 2 moves, forced checkmate. My opponent gave back the rook, but I was super scared and calculated this resource for white for about 15 minutes. And my opponent played this move right now in like 2 minutes after I took 15 minutes for bishop e5, which was surprising. My opponent goes with f4. No, she doesn't go with f4, but that's the resource. f4 is like really quizzical. If I do rook takes, right? Rook takes, queen takes. It doesn't look that winning here. I'm up the exchange, but it doesn't look that winning. So I thought this would be a better check first to give, and then we do this, and then on takes, then I go queen takes f4, and I'm threatening some mating things. Precisely, I'm attacking this rook here. If you go rook b8 now, I have check, I calculated this, king here, check, you can't go queen h2 because it's mate, king here, and then bishop d4 wins the game, wins the queen. But I missed that here, white can go king f1 and be completely safe. And now it's only -1 advantage for black, and it's not that winning. So I missed the calculation here. She took. Taking is winning for black because she embedded that I would take with queen takes. Queen takes just trade queens into a really not that good endgame because she takes here on c5. I told you these pawns, they mirror themselves for the rest of the game. Like these pawns literally look at each other the rest of the game and don't take each other. It's crazy. But instead, I take with the pawn, keeping the queens on the board, keeping this king weak, and threatening rook f4, rook h4 checkmate. And white has no checks, no counterattacks in the meanwhile. So she plays the only move, which she told me after the game she hadn't seen rook f4 coming with rook h4 checkmate. So this is lucky by her. Now I play queen h4 check, tempo gaining move, and I defend this pawn. The only problem is when you take this too fast, she played way too fast here, you missed a tactic that I was also threatening, which is rook g5 check, forcing this king to f1. If the king goes to f3, it's mate with queen f4 checkmate. But if the king goes to f1, I have queen h3 check, king e1, and then we can just take the rook. I didn't take the rook. You can call this trolling, but I genuinely thought that queen c3 was a quicker win. Because after this takes, I just couldn't find a way to win the queen. It was so annoying. So after so many checks, I just say, you know what? Let's trade and play h5. And this pawn is queening. And although it looks like white actually has some chances here, after takes, king e7, the pawn does not queen, and there's nothing you can do to stop my pawn, and it is over. I won game 3, and now I have 2 out of 3 hopping in to round 4. That day 2 was really tough. I had 2 rounds in a row, and at the end of that 3rd game, I was super exhausted. Hopefully after some rest, I can perform well in game 4. Thank you so much for watching. Comment W in chat. See you next time for round 4. Sending you a ton of love. Cheers. Bye. It's raining. I'm going.